So welcome to 11.3, Solving Radical Equations. Today we'll begin with our first example problem. 2 plus radical x plus 10 equals x. We're going to isolate the radical. So here you see we have a radical here. We're going to try and get that by itself. What's the opposite of adding 2? What's the opposite of that? Subtracting, right? Alright, so that would be 2 take away 2 is 0, and I'm left with radical x plus 10 equals x minus 2. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to square both sides to get rid of that radical. So we'll square both sides, and what that'll end up doing is it'll get rid of my radical. So I'm left with x plus 10, and what I'm going to do is have this x minus 2 squared, which is essentially x minus 2 times x minus 2. So I know this was from a while back, but we're going to go ahead and FOIL this out. So our firsts would be x squared. Our outers would be negative 2x. Our inners, negative 2x. And our lasts would be positive 4. Alright, so let's go ahead and simplify this. That would be x to the second power minus 4x plus 4 equals x plus 10. The next thing we're going to do, just as it says here, move all terms so one side of the equal sign is 0. So we're going to move this x over. What's the opposite of a positive x? Negative, right? So I have 10 equals x squared minus 5x plus 4. We're almost there. This side is almost 0. What's the opposite of a positive 10? A negative 10. So we're going to go ahead and move that over. And that would be negative 6, negative 5x, and x to the second power. And this side is finally 0. We are going to factor. I know we said there wasn't going to be a lot of factoring, but we do want to factor this out. So think of two numbers that multiply to get you negative 6, but add or combine to get you negative 5. So write out all your factors for negative 6 and see which ones work. Pause here, try that out. And essentially those two numbers would be a negative 6 and a positive 1. So if I multiply those together, I get negative 6. If I add them, it would be negative 5. So that would be negative 6 plus 1. So we factored. And last but not least, we're going to use a zero product property to solve. So we're going to set this and this equal to 0. And we are going to solve each one of those out. So go ahead and pause here. Take some time to do that. And unpause. We'll find that that's positive 6 and negative 1. Last part we're going to do is just to check for extraneous solutions. So we're going to try and check each of these answers to make sure that they actually work. So here our first answer was x equals 6. So instead of x, I'm going to put 6 instead, and negative 1 in. So we're just going to check to see if these actually work out. So here that would be 2 plus the square root of 6 plus 10, which is 16. What is the square root of 16? 4, right? And let's see if that actually works. Does 2 plus 4 get me 6? Yes. So that means that x equals 6 is a solution. Yay. Let's see if that works out here. So here if I get this, 10 plus negative 1 would be 9. And I'm going to copy down the rest of the problem. What's the square root of 9? 3, right? Now should probably copy down the right question. Would 2 plus 3 get me a negative 1? Well, no. In fact, so that means even though we got this as an answer, x equals negative 1, this would not be a solution. because we tried it out and didn't work. So moving on to explain 1 part B. So here they give us this problem, x plus 6 raised to the 1/2 power minus 2x minus 4 raised to the 1/2 power. They ask us to rewrite using radicals. So you'll notice here that they wrote x plus 6 to the 1/2 power as a square root of x plus 6. You can also do this with any fractional exponent, so x plus 6 raised to the 1/3 power could be the cube root of x plus 6, or x plus 6 raised to the 1/4 power would be 4th root x plus 6. So just so you know that we can write this as anything. The first thing we're going to do is we rewrote as radicals, and we're going to isolate the radicals. So we're going to move this negative radical over. What's the opposite of a negative? Positive, right? So we're going to keep that the same, but we're just going to add that to both sides. That's going to cancel out, and I'm left with radical x plus 6 and radical 2x minus 4. The next step we're going to do is squaring both sides. So we're going to square this side, x plus 6 radical and radical 2x minus 4. What that's going to do is it's going to get rid of our radical symbol, and we're left with x plus 6 on one side and 2x minus 4 on the other. We are now going to go ahead and solve this out. So what is the opposite of a positive 2x? Negative 2x. That's going to cancel out, and we're left with negative 4 equals negative 1x plus 6. Now let's move this over. What's the opposite of a positive 6? Negative 6, right? So that would be negative 10 equals negative 1x. We're not quite done yet. We're going to continue to solve this out. So that would be a negative 1x equals negative 10. What's the opposite of multiplying? Dividing. So we're going to divide that, and x was equal to 10. We're going to check to see if this is actually a solution. So if I plug in instead of x 10 and instead of x 10, we're going to see if this actually works out. So that would be 10 plus 6 is 16. We're still going to square root that. And then let's work this out a little bit. 2 times 10 minus 4. What's 2 times 10? Okay. If I take away 4, what would that be? 16, right? So essentially I have the square root of 16 take away the square root of 16. And anything take away itself, whether it's square root of 16 take away the square root of 16, or I don't know, 5 take away 5, or 10 take away 10, that would be what? 0. Hey, they match. 0 equals 0. So that means the solution is actually x equals 10. Just as it says here on your example packet, make sure you're stopping here and doing the problems in the packet, okay?